There are three groups of persons living in modern industrialized societies who believe in specters and ghosts. These are the children. The second group is made by mentally handicapped persons suffering from schizophrenia or something alike, and some group of migrants coming from some parts of the global south. The children believe in ghosts and specters because they are still staying on lower stages of psychological development. The mentally handicapped persons believe in specters and ghosts, or at least some of those mentally handicapped believe in specters and ghosts because they have returned to earlier stages of human development because they fall back to earlier stages. And the persons coming from remote and traditional and backward areas of the global south believe in specters and ghosts because they never developed beyond the child's stages due to arrested development. All others living in modern industrialized societies, the usual adolescent or the common adult in modern industrialized society, does not believe anymore in specters and ghosts due to stages of cognition and stages of psychological development much beyond the possibilities and facts of child development, because these adults in modern industrialized societies have advanced beyond the child's stages. I've written some articles about this subject I want to show here. The most important article is the last one, The Belief in Ghosts and Specters, published in Human Evolution last year. The article Ghosts or Absence of Light pertains to a certain aspect of belief in ghosts, namely the link between shadow understanding and belief in ghosts, because children think that their shadows or shadows cast on floors are substances, are something like ghosts or doubles of themselves. Therefore, children try to treat on their shadows they cast, and they cannot understand why they are not able to catch them by their hands or by their feet. And we see the same in pre-modern or archaic cultures, where people did not understand the nature of shadows, believing in their substance nature and believing that they are the ghosts of the substances and persons. And therefore, archaic people never understand that shadows are nothing else than the hindrance of lightfall by some physical objects staying in the middle between floors and the source of light. The first article, Why Pre-Modern Humans Believe in the Divine Status of Their Parents, deals only with one other special aspect of the subject, namely that the ancestors, the dead parents and predecessors, are seen as ghosts. So it is only one aspect of the belief in ghosts, but a very strong aspect that is dealt in the article of 2015. So I recommend strongly the third article, The Belief in Ghosts and Specters. I think it is possible possibly the most illuminating article about the origin of the belief in ghosts ever written in literature. So all children believe in ghosts, specters, and monsters. There's not one early child that does not believe in ghosts, specters, and monsters. It is a law of psychological development that children go through a certain stage where they cannot avoid of believing in ghosts and specters. And that means that the belief in ghosts and specters among children does not originate in culture and socialization, does not originate in that what parents and educators tell to children. The belief in ghosts and specters among children comes from their psychological stage, from their neurological development, from their development of brain and psyche. And therefore, it is inevitable, and you cannot extinguish the belief in ghosts and specters among children by any form of socialization techniques, persuasion, education, training, teaching, and so on. If you make a child believe that ghosts and specters do not exist, and the child seems to be convinced for a moment, it will fall back into his belief in ghosts and specters by the next opportunity, by the next staying in darkness or in a cellar or in a dark bedroom or in situations alike. It is the effect. It is the effect of fear. It is the fear that makes children to believe in ghosts and specters in darkness, in dark forests, in dark streets, in dark surroundings in their bedroom. And this fear of something unknown makes children believe that there must be a certain source that arouses this fear, that makes this fear plausible. And children do not only believe in ghosts and specters because they see them and they listen to them and they have them before their eyes. That has to do with the eidetic organization of psyche and cognition in the child, where ideas of fear are transmitted into hallucinations and visions. And therefore, you won't find a child that cannot tell a story of having seen ghosts or specters anywhere in the darkness or in the room. Every child goes through a stage where he or she sees in his bedroom before falling asleep some ghosts or specters coming from the ceiling, coming from the walls, coming from the wardrobe. They see before their eyes that clothes laid over a chair turn before their eyes into a being looking like a ghost. They all know, they all have experienced that sparkling eyes from predators, from lions or leopards or wolves, that sparkling eyes without body are running through the room, and they feel threatened by these predators. They seemingly see with their own eyes. Every child has made the experience um, that the fear of the ghost can become so strong that the child tries to hide its body under the bedclothes, uh, having problems to breathe, and that they don't dare to take off the bedclothes to get into the position of being able to breathe again. So sometimes minutes they spend time under the bedclothes without having the possibility to breathe because they are so afraid of the ghosts that they want to hide their bodies in order to avoid that the specters and ghosts can see them laying in their bed. Every child knows when it goes through a forest in the darkness alone without accompanying parents or adults or other children, that they see how some twigs and branches of trees transform into specters and ghosts with a typical appearance of specters and ghosts with a human-like body or so. And although children may know that it is probably their own fear that is accountable for the hallucinations and for the visions, they cannot avoid of maintaining the contention that it is possibly not an hallucination, but that there is a real specter there, and therefore, even if they have the idea that there's something wrong in their perception, they cannot avoid of having a fear and being exposed to this fear. With about 6 years of life, the fear of specters and ghosts declines in children of modern societies. Especially the visions and hallucinations disappear, or diminish at least, and the belief in specters and ghosts gets an abstract nature. It gets an diluted nature, and so the children continue their belief in specters and ghosts and monsters when they think about derelict castles, or when they think about swamps, or when they think about dark forests or cellars or so. But the belief in specters and ghosts becomes weaker and weaker. And it vanishes around the 10th, 11th, or 12th year of life among children of modern societies. And when people go through the second decade of life, becoming 15 or 16 years of age, their belief in specters and ghosts is normally totally vanished and is not to find among normal adults living in modern industrialized societies. Even if surveys will document that perhaps 5% or 10% of normal people in modern industrialized societies confess to believe in the existence of specters and ghosts, this is usually a very abstract belief, but it has nothing to do with their own perceptions and with their own visions in their everyday life. So it gets an abstract status, but not something that is linked to everyday perception and everyday cognition. So what we see now is that child or developmental psychology is a single theoretical approach to explain both the existence, the belief in the existence, none, to explain the existence of the belief in ghosts and to explain the disappearance of the belief in ghosts. Child or developmental psychology is a single theoretical approach that explains the sources and the origins of the belief in specters and ghosts. People must stay on the stages of a child to be able to believe in specters and ghosts. And whenever people attain cognitive summits of children living in modern societies beyond their 10th year of life, then the belief in ghosts and specters disappears. And therefore, the disappearance of the belief in specters and ghosts in modern industrialized nations originates solely in developmental ages beyond the 10th year of life. As humans of modern industrialized societies have reached and attained psychological stages beyond the 10th year of life, namely the adolescent stage of formal operations, this is the explanation to the disappearance of the belief in ghosts and specters in modern nations. And therefore, it is absolutely clear that collective customs, missions, historical traditions, societal functions do not explain the belief in ghosts and specters. And that means that only developmental ages and developmental stages explain both the existence and the disappearance of the belief in specters. And therefore, it is absolutely clear that the belief in specters and ghosts among pre-modern adults, among pre-modern societies, originates solely in one cause, namely in the pre-operational stage of pre-modern peoples. As pre-modern peoples around the world stay on anthropological stages below the 10th year of life, therefore it is absolutely clear that this fact explains the adherence to the belief in specters and ghosts. And we do not find any pre-modern society around the world, from Stone Ages to the advent of modern society, no matter which continent, culture, and historical era we take, everywhere we find the belief in specters and ghosts in every pre-modern culture and society, in ancient China, in ancient India, in ancient and medieval Europe, among nature peoples in Australia, both America, and so on. Everywhere is the belief in specters and ghosts very, very strong and affects every single aspect of their everyday life. And therefore, it is absolutely clear that the belief in specters and ghosts among pre-modern peoples is a wonderful and clear empirical indicator to their childlike and topological stage, to their pre-operational stage, to their anthropological stages below the 10th year of life. Ancient people, archaic people around the world see their dead, see their descendants as ghosts, and they fear their descendants, adore to them, bring sacrifices to them, pray to them, and believe that the descendants have the full power to affect their life, to punish them when they forget to pray and to sacrifice, that they punish them for their misdeeds, and that they have in their power to control the life of the descendants and to make incidents in their surroundings happy or unhappy to them due to their magical power they have. So the fear of the dead is a part of the fear of the ghosts, and the fear of the dead originates in the belief in ghosts and specters because their own ancestors are seen as ghosts. And that is the reason why ancient peoples around the world mutilated themselves at the graveyards when their parents are buried there, because they believe that the ghost of their dead parents and relatives transforms the dead people into ghosts having the power to punish their descendants. And as the descendants assume that the dead could believe that their magic was the source of the death, they preempt the punishment of the dead by self-mutilation, assuming to be spared from any punishment by the dead when you inflict harm on your own body at the graveyard. So the widespread custom of mutilation of the own body at the graveyards originates in the belief that the dead would punish those who have survived, assuming they would be responsible for the death. And you see that this self-mutilation exemplifies and evidences the strength of the belief in the ghosts. Among the Lengua in Gran Chaco, it was custom that every village was abandoned when a person died in the village, because the descendants believed that the ghost would punish the survivors and would inflict the life in the village. And therefore they abandoned at every death of any relative and resident, they abandoned the village and created a new one some miles away. And they buried every dead person before nightfall, as they feared that during the night a dead body laying in the village would inflict harm, and therefore they are very eager to bury any dead body before dusk. And even if the person has not expired, they lay him down in the forest alone due to their fears. In Burkina Faso, during the 1990s, that is about 30 years ago, it was custom to returned home before midnight. David Siegner, a Swiss ethnologist, reports in his book published 30 years ago that it was custom in Burkina Faso to leave any party at 11 p.m. to have the time to return home just before midnight, as it was believed in the entire nation that the ghosts would travel through the roads in searching for people being outside at midnight or after midnight, to catch them and to let them work in their gardens until they die. And this belief was so strong that every party was left at 11 p.m. and there was not a single event taking place after midnight due to the fear of the ghost. And the fear of the ghost is still prevalent in Africa, but not only there, but it is existing and sometimes even strong in many parts of the global south. It was the Age of Enlightenment that in Europe destroyed greater parts of the belief in ghosts and specters. And in the 19th century, this trend towards rationality got stronger and stronger. But we can say that the belief in ghosts and specters was still more or less strong in Europe 100 years ago. And then it declined, declined, and declined from generation to generation. When we see the strength of belief in ghosts and specters, for example, in Germany during the 19th century, then we see that there was a strong process of disappearance of the belief in ghosts and specters during the generations of the 20th century. And now we can say that this process has advanced a lot when comparing it with the data and reports of the 19th century. So the decline of the belief in ghosts and specters in Europe and Germany goes over several centuries. And that the belief in ghosts and specters was much, much stronger 1,000 years ago than 500 years ago. And that it was much, much stronger in the 19th century than today. And this decline of belief in ghosts and specters, covering hundreds of years, has different points in different nations around the globe. And therefore, it is clear that in the developing nations, this belief in ghosts and specters is still much stronger than in the most advanced nations of the world. Many researchers have worked out the parallels between the belief in ghosts and specters in children and in ancient cultures. But nobody has defined and phrased the decisive point, because the decisive point is that stage theory alone and nothing else explains the belief in ghosts and specters and explains the disappearance of the belief in ghosts and specters. And that the single cause to the belief in ghosts and specters among pre-modern societies is a pre-operational stage. Well, nobody else has ever defined that the adolescent stage of formal operations is the sole condition, the sole cause to the disappearance of the belief in ghosts and specters among modern nations. Only the structural genetic theory program I have formulated in the past 40 years has defined and coined this decisive point. If we only knew from ancient peoples their belief in ghosts and specters, this would suffice to have demonstrated beyond the slightest doubt their childlike anthropological stage. If we only knew from modern industrialized nations their disbelief in ghosts and specters, this would suffice to have verified beyond the slightest doubt that these modern nations have attained developmental ages beyond the 10th year of life and that they are staying on the adolescent stage of formal operations.